Question 4. How did you use new media technologies in the construction and research, planning, and evaluation stages? Throughout the entire production of my products, the various technologies I used was massively helpful. It was particularly useful for research for a number of reasons. At the start of the project, I used the internet in order to get a better understanding of the conventions. On the internet, I was able to get a varied, large quantity of real local newspapers. What I found massively useful in terms of understanding the conventions is copying and pasting images of local newspapers from the internet into PowerPoint and labeling them. I was able to label them after researching online the complex terminology and the definitions. As PowerPoint is not a new software and I've used it many times, it was very easy to make displays of the different items in a local newspaper. Although to get a better understanding of the conventions, I did also analyse physical copies, but this proved to be much more difficult and less useful than finding them online. To publish and present my work, I used an online blogging service known as Blogger. As I had previously used this for my AS Media Studies coursework and I had used it for my own personal blogs, I was very familiar with how to use it successfully. Knowing the service well meant I saved lots of time as I did not need to learn a new program. However, the actual production of my work was when I used the most platforms of technology. I used Adobe InDesign to actually create my newspaper. As I had previously used the software in my AS Media Studies coursework, I had a reasonable understanding on how to operate it. I used Adobe InDesign to develop my products as it creates the most professional results and it is relatively simple to use. The program proved to be very useful as I was able to create page layouts very easily and label each section. Having labels set in predetermined designated locations meant I could easily organise the structure without wasting time organising placement. I could also create different layers for each sections. This was very useful as it meant I could colour coordinate all the repeated features. In terms of manipulating and editing photos, I use the software Adobe Photoshop. I've used this program for a number of years as I used it in my art photography and I used it in my AS Media Studies coursework. Having previous knowledge on how to operate the software meant I could quickly and professionally edit my photos. I use the software as it is used by many people, including newspaper developers, and I wanted to create a product that looks as realistic as possible. I used Adobe Photoshop when editing my logo. After scanning a paper-drawn version of my logo, I realised it was much more darker and had much more noise than I anticipated. So in order to get the higher quality of my logo, I used the Smart Sharpen tool. This made it so the image had a lot more structure. And I used the Contrast and Brighten tool to make it higher, which made the black lines much more prominent. One slightly more complex example of me using Adobe Photoshop in order to edit an image was removing the background of the iPhone in my billboard and in my promotion banner. Getting a successful image of an iPhone was much more harder than I anticipated, as any light reflected off the screen into the lens. After choosing an image I was happy with, I knew I would have to use Adobe Photoshop in order to higher the quality. A software that I was not totally familiar with was iMovie. This is because previously I've used very basic film editing software such as Windows Movie Maker. I used iMovie to create my radio advertisement. At first I believed this would be a very complex task, however I was pleasantly surprised. The program is very easy to import audio, and after choosing the two sound parts, the speaking and the background music, I was able to adjust the audio volume of each clip to make sure one wasn't much louder than the other. I gathered the audio of my speech using earphones with inbuilt microphone. This was a very good quality microphone as it is built by Apple. I knew this microphone would be sufficient enough as the audio recording test sounded very high standard. I also used iMovie when creating the presentations of my evaluation. As I now had knowledge on how to operate the program, this task was very straightforward.